South Africa is asking, what killed 21 teenagers, all at the same club, all on the same night? Hi there, everyone. It's Jeff, and this is Plain English lesson number 488. JR has uploaded the full lesson content to plainenglish.com/488. A sad topic today, 21 teenagers celebrating the end of the school term all died in a nightclub in a village in South Africa. And weeks after the tragedy, authorities still do not know for sure what happened. In the second half of today's lesson, I'll show you what it means to pass out, and we have a quote of the week. Let's get started. At the end of June, kids in South Africa were celebrating the end of the school term. They have a tradition called a pens down party. It's a party on the night after the last exams. Scenery Park is a small village on the outskirts of East London, a city on Africa's southern coast. And on the night of June 26th, local teenagers were having a pens down party at the Enyobeni Tavern, a rundown 2-story bar and nightclub. 21 of them are now dead, and nobody knows why. At 4 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, June 27th, police were called to the nightclub. When they got there, 17 teenagers were already dead. 4 more teens were rushed to the hospital, where they too died, bringing the death toll to 21. The youngest victim was just 13 years old. The most likely cause of a mass death at a nightclub is a stampede, and authorities first suspected that is what happened here. But the victims' bodies showed no signs of being trampled. Their positioning, too, cast doubt on the idea of a stampede. The bodies weren't crowded by an exit or even crowded together. Instead, they were strewn haphazardly on the floor, on tables, and on chairs. Teens who were at the club said they saw their friends collapse unexpectedly. In the chaos, some were able to flee the building. They recalled feeling dizzy, more so than they would be from just the alcohol alone. 31 other partygoers were hospitalized on Saturday night with a range of symptoms, including backaches, tight chests, vomiting, and headaches. What could have happened? There are several possibilities. The kids may all have taken the same drugs. They may have been drinking illicit alcohol. Homemade or illicit alcohol can contain high levels of ethanol, methanol, or other toxic substances that can, in some cases, lead to death. Another possible scenario is that the victims were asphyxiated by gas. This could have come from a gas leak or from a generator producing carbon monoxide. Accounts from the survivors shed some light on what happened, but they are not definitive. Some said they thought the people collapsed from simply drinking too much alcohol. Others recalled trying to escape from a suffocating smell. They said people were begging to leave, saying they couldn't breathe. One 22-year-old said he was at the party earlier in the night and that someone closed the doors to the party and released either tear gas or pepper spray. He said the doors were closed and there was no way out. One survivor said she passed out, then regained consciousness when someone poured water on her. A staff member thought the people on the ground were simply drunk, so he poured water on them to wake them up. The club was a party scene that night. The DJ said that earlier in the night, crowds were pushing their way in from the outside and that the bouncers had lost control of the crowd. He tried shutting off the music to control the crowd, but people kept pushing their way in, the DJ said. The government has declined to speculate about the cause until the results of their forensic investigation are in. The autopsies have all been completed. However, results from toxicology exams are still pending. While South Africa waits for answers, parents, family, friends, and neighbors are saying goodbye. 2 young victims were buried shortly after their bodies were released. An overflow crowd attended a symbolic funeral with 19 empty caskets representing the other victims. Classmates attended in their school uniforms. Candles illuminated photos of the victims. South Africa's president, Cyril Ramaphosa, delivered a eulogy. The caskets were empty at the request of the parents. The 19 other children were later buried in private ceremonies. The tragedy also shines an uncomfortable spotlight on South Africa's culture of underage drinking. Under the law, nobody younger than 18 can be served alcohol. However, it's an open secret in South Africa that this is rarely enforced, and neighbors say the Enyobeni Tavern had a reputation for repeatedly flouting the law. All the victims were underage, ranging from 13 to 17 years old. Ramaphosa said that South Africa needs to have a frank conversation about how underage drinking has been normalized and how laws are not enforced. The local liquor board has opened an investigation into the tavern owners on the matter of serving alcohol to minors. No charges or accusations have yet been filed in connection with the deaths. The tavern has been temporarily shut down. This is sad in so many ways. I saw an interview with a local teenager, and she said that there are so few opportunities in the area that all people do is drink. And this place, the Enyobeni Tavern, apparently had a reputation for openly selling alcohol to very young kids, and the youngest was just 13. And an interesting thing is that a lot of other people were at that club, and not all of them were underage. In fact, a lot of the survivors were over 18, some already 22. And nobody there thought either the 13-year-old shouldn't be at a packed nightclub. So a frank conversation is definitely in order because, yes, the law failed, the enforcement of the law failed, but I think the culture there failed too. Now, just a quick heads up, by the time you hear this, there might be toxicology results and more answers. If that's the case, then I'll post the latest information in our Facebook group, which you can join at plainenglish.com/Facebook. Today's English expression is to pass out. To pass out is to lose consciousness. There are two ways to use it. One is stronger than the other. So let's start with the stronger and more common use of the term. When you pass out, you lose consciousness in a way that is more than simply falling asleep. It's something medical. This can happen if you're sick, badly injured, if you faint, or if you overdose on drugs or alcohol. And that's how you heard it earlier today. A survivor of the Enyobeni Tavern tragedy said that she smelled a bad odor and then passed out on the floor. She lost consciousness. For some reason, and we don't know what it was, we don't know why, but for some reason, her body shut down and she lost consciousness. She was very lucky because she regained her consciousness afterward when someone was pouring water on her. She was very lucky because she was then able to escape. We don't know for sure what happened, but it's probably fair to say that the victims first passed out and then died soon thereafter. This was a very dangerous situation where passing out led, probably, to the teenagers dying of whatever they inhaled, drank, ingested, whatever. A person can also pass out from drinking too much alcohol or from taking drugs. Remember that in this sense, to pass out is more than just falling asleep. If someone passes out from drinking too much alcohol and you can't wake that person up, then that person should go to the hospital. We've all seen movies where a character hits another person hard on the head and the victim immediately falls to the ground. The victim passes out. That person is not asleep, right? But often, that person is not dead either. He, and it usually is a he in the movies, isn't it? He has passed out and will regain consciousness later. Passing out isn't always dangerous. When you faint, your blood pressure drops, your brain doesn't get the oxygen it needs to function, and your body, as a defensive mechanism, shuts down. This can be in response to stress, emotional trauma, seeing blood, or from not eating enough. But regardless, this isn't sleep. So you get the idea. For the most part, to pass out means to lose consciousness for a medical reason. However, colloquially, meaning informally, some people do use pass out as an exaggerated way of saying to fall asleep when you're really tired, or to fall into a deep sleep. And this is probably not the correct use of the phrase, but nonetheless, people do use it this way. I even do sometimes, but only when the context is clear. So imagine you have a really long day, you wake up at 6 a.m., go to work, leave work, go to the gym, get home, make dinner, and then you go to a friend's house for a birthday party and you come home at 1 o'clock in the morning. You might say, I got home at 1 o'clock a.m. and I immediately passed out. And that means you went right to sleep because you were very tired. Have you ever slept through something really loud, like a fire alarm? And why didn't you hear the alarm? I was passed out, you might say. In that case, you were truly asleep, but it was a deep sleep. You could say, I passed out on the couch watching TV, or I passed out early last night if you fell asleep earlier than you expected. Now, when you use it in the sense of falling asleep, you usually reserve this for those times when you're really tired or when you fall asleep unexpectedly. Now, again, this is not the textbook way of using pass out, but people do sometimes use it this way. Here we go, time for the quote of the week. We're reaching way back in history for this one, Frederick the Great. Frederick the Great was a king in Prussia, modern-day Germany, from 1740 until he died in 1786. So here's the quote from Frederick the Great. What good is experience if you do not reflect? I like this quote a lot. Now, sure, experience is great, but did you learn from it? Did you reflect afterward? Did you think about what happened? Reflecting, thinking back on it, that makes the experience worth it. So I love this quote again from Frederick the Great. What good is experience if you do not reflect? Well, we were talking last week about active versus passive learning, and those of you who get our emails should have gotten an invitation to a quick video I put together on the topic. And the video talks about the differences between active and passive learning. And it includes some tips on how to turn some common passive activities into active ones. And a lot of them are free. So if you get the Plain English emails, you should have already gotten an email about this video. Just click the link in the emails and you'll see it. Now, if you are not on the list, or if you're listening to this in the future, then I'll make it easy on you. Just go to plainenglish.com/active and you'll see it. I'll also put the link in the show notes for this episode if you're listening on a podcast app. So there's no excuse not to watch that video. plainenglish.com/active, or just click the link in the show notes. It's not a long video, just maybe 5 minutes on the first page, but I think the video and the workshop should spark some ideas on how you can become a more active English learner. Well, that's all for today. Remember to check the Facebook group for any updates on today's topic. I'll be following the news and keeping you up to date in there. See you right back here for a new lesson on Thursday.